Apart from painting, oiling and greasing, other methods are methods like galvanization. This is a very important method used for preventing rusting. And in this, iron is covered with a layer of zinc. So galvanization is a process of coating the iron article, the iron surface, with a layer of zinc. Now this is done because zinc is more reactive than iron. So if this is an iron article which has to be prevented, which has to be protected from rusting, we will galvanize it. That is, we will coat its surface with a layer of zinc. So maybe this green layer that I'm drawing is a layer of zinc which has been put over the iron article. So this process will be called the process of galvanization. Now when zinc will be exposed to the air, the surrounding air, it will get oxidized. Zinc will convert into zinc oxide. Then further it will convert into zinc hydroxide, and when it comes in contact with carbon dioxide of air, it will convert into zinc carbonate. Zinc carbonate adheres to the surface of zinc very strongly, and thus it behaves like a protective layer. So the underlying iron will be protected completely, because instead of iron, zinc will undergo the reaction from its surrounding. And the process of galvanization is very important. It is very durable. Why? Because in case, suppose after a prolonged period of time, there's a crack in the zinc layer, there's a scratch in the zinc layer, and both iron and zinc are exposed to the atmosphere, then also zinc will get corroded, not iron, because it is more reactive than iron. In preference to iron, zinc will lose electrons, it will undergo oxidation, again it will undergo the entire process of converting into carbonate, and ultimately again the gap will be filled by a layer of zinc carbonate. So in this case, iron will be protected, and galvanization is thus said to be the most durable, maintenance free. In fact, it provides maintenance free service for a very long period of time. We can also cover iron with layers of other metals like tin. The process is called tinning, where iron is covered by a layer of tin. But as compared to galvanization, tinning is not very durable because tin is less reactive than iron. So in case there's a scratch on the layer, iron will oxidize instead of tin. Next method for preventing rusting is alloying. Although we will study this topic later, alloys are mixtures of metals. So we can convert iron into an alloy. We can mix it with carbon. Carbon is a non-metal. Metal mixture as well as metal non-metal mixture, both are considered to be alloys. So iron will be converted into steel. Alloy of iron with carbon is called steel. And instead of steel, it's better to convert it into stainless steel by mixing iron, carbon, chromium and nickel. So it will convert into stainless steel, which is resistant to rusting. There's one more method which can be employed for the prevention of rusting, which is by the use of anti-rust solutions. To decrease rusting of iron, certain anti-rust solutions are used. For example, solutions of alkaline phosphates. They are used as anti-rust solutions. So this was rusting, that is corrosion of iron. We can take into consideration some other examples of corrosion, like corrosion of aluminium. Corrosion of aluminium is also important to study. Why? Because till now we have seen that corrosion is harmful in nature. it deteriorates the metal, it destroys the metal completely. But in case of aluminium, when aluminium undergoes corrosion, it converts into aluminium oxide, Al2O3, which forms a layer over the aluminium article. Now, unlike rust, which is flaky in nature, this layer, aluminium oxide layer, it adheres to the metal surface, and that is why it is protective in nature. So in this case, in case of corrosion of aluminium, it is beneficial. So very common question regarding corrosion is, corrosion can be harmful as well as beneficial. Explain. So in that case, harmful effect of corrosion can be explained by rusting, taking example of iron, and beneficial case of corrosion can be the corrosion of aluminium, where aluminium is getting converted, or it is getting covered by a layer of Al2O3, which is very protective in nature. It will not allow the penetration of moist air, acids, alkalis to come in contact with the metal, and that is why the metal will be protected. It is a dull layer and it is tough, very tough, and prevents the metal underneath from further corrosion. Next example of corrosion is the corrosion of copper. So we can consider one more example of corrosion, that is corrosion of copper. This also we have experienced in our day-to-day life. Very commonly, copper utensils are used in homes, and after a prolonged period of time, copper metals acquire a green layer over them. So when a copper object remains in damp air for a considerable time, then copper reacts slowly with carbon dioxide and water of air to form a green coating of basic copper carbonate, that is CuCO3.CuOH whole twice. It is a green layer, and formation of this green layer will signify, or it will show, the corrosion of copper. Since copper metal is low in the reactivity series, corrosion of copper is very slow, but it can be easily observed in our day-to-day life. One very common example of corrosion is corrosion of silver. Silver is a highly unreactive metal, so it does not react with oxygen of air easily. But air usually contains a little of sulfur compounds like hydrogen sulfide, H2S, which reacts slowly with silver to form a black coating of silver sulfide. So we can represent the corrosion of silver by an equation. Silver reacts with H2S of air. It forms Ag2S, silver sulfide, which acquires a black coating on the ornament or on the silver article. Silver ornaments gradually turn black due to the formation of thin silver sulfide layer on their surface, and we say that silver has been tarnished. This is a term that is used instead of corrosion. We say silver is tarnished. It acquires a black layer. So this was the corrosion of different metals which we encounter in our day-to-day lives. Let's come to another very important and very common term with reference to metals, that is alloys. Alloys are homogeneous mixtures of two or more metals or metal and non-metal. So in case there is a homogeneous mixture, homogeneous here means it will be uniform all throughout. There will be no boundary of distinction or no boundary of segregation or separation between the components. And this can be a mixture of either metals, or it can be a mixture of metal along with a non-metal. For example, I've quoted one example earlier also, a mixture of iron and carbon, which is called steel. It is an alloy. And similarly, if we mix, let's say, copper and zinc, This homogeneous mixture will also be an alloy, and it is called brass. It's a very common alloy which is used in our day-to-day lives. Now, what are the objectives of alloy making? How is this process of alloying useful for us? So we can study the importance of alloying. Alloys are generally prepared to have certain specific properties which are not possessed by the constituent metals. The main objects of alloy making are: first, to increase resistance to corrosion. This is very important objective of alloy making. For example, stainless steel. This I have quoted the example earlier also. Iron, carbon, chromium and nickel. This mixture is known as stainless steel, and I hope you can understand why the name stainless, because it does not rust at all. In fact, chromium, this component, makes it resistant to corrosion. Like aluminium, chromium acquires a protective layer of its oxide which prevents the corrosion, or which prevents the rusting of the article. Next objective of alloy making can be modifying chemical reactivity. The chemical reactivity of, for example, sodium. We know sodium is it's a highly reactive metal, and it is not stored in packets because it can easily react with air. It is not stored in water because its reaction with water is very explosive. It reacts with water to liberate a large amount of hydrogen, and that is why it is stored under kerosene. So in case we have to perform an experiment, or we have to use sodium in laboratories or maybe somewhere else, what we have to do is we have to mix sodium with mercury. The most common method is this only. We make an alloy of sodium and mercury, which is known as sodium amalgam. And due to this, its reactivity decreases and it becomes easier for us to handle the metal. Next objective of alloy making is to increase hardness. For example, steel is more harder than iron. Alloying can be used to increase tensile strength. For example, magnesium. Magnesium, which is an alloy of magnesium and aluminium. Clearly understood from its name, magnesium. It has greater tensile strength as compared to the individual metals, both magnesium and aluminium. Another objective of alloy making is to produce good casting. For example, type metal is an alloy of lead, tin and mercury, which produces good casting. Apart from this, alloys can be used, this is also very important, to lower melting points. For example, solder, which is an alloy of lead and tin in 1:1 ratio, both 50%. It has low melting point and is used for the welding of electrical wires together. So these were the objectives of alloy making. Now we can look into some common examples of alloys. There are some alloys which are very commonly used in our day-to-day lives. So first we can take the example of alloys of copper. For example, brass, which is an alloy of copper and zinc, and is used for decoration purposes for making many scientific instruments like telescopes, microscopes, barometers, etc. Another common alloy of copper is bronze, which is a mixture of copper and tin. Now, very commonly during my classes, also during my lectures, it is my experience that students very often get, very easily get confused between brass and bronze. The common metal among the two is copper, and they get confused whether brass contains zinc along with copper or brass contains tin along with copper. So there's a very simple technique to remember this. Brass has S in its spelling, it contains the opposite Z. Bronze has Z in its spelling, it contains the opposite tin. So no need to get confused whether brass contains tin or brass contains zinc. There are two options, zinc and tin. Just see whether it is S or whether it is Z. So go with the reverse. Bronze is used for making statues, cooking utensils and coins. Although bronze has a very small amount of zinc also, but in case you need to choose between zinc and tin which is present in bronze, then it is tin. German silver. This is also a very common alloy of copper, which contains copper, zinc and nickel. It is silvery white, that is why named German silver, malleable and ductile, and it is used as imitation silver. It is used in making ornaments and utensils and also for decoration. So again, German silver, it is named German silver because it looks like silver. It does not contain silver as its constituents. Then gunmetal, which is an alloy of copper, zinc, tin and lead. It is used for making gears and bearings and gun barrels. That is why gunmetal. Bell metal, which is an alloy of copper and tin, and it is used for casting bells, of course. That is why bell metal. We can now look into the examples of alloys of iron. Stainless steel, which I have already twice or thrice I've mentioned, and nickel steel, which contains iron and nickel. Nickel is hard, elastic and it's corrosion resistant, and this nickel steel is used for making electric wire cables, automobile and aeroplane parts, watches, armor plates, propeller shafts, etc. Then we come to the alloys of aluminium. For example, duralumin, which is an alloy of aluminium, copper, magnesium and manganese. And this alloy is very strong, corrosion resistant, highly ductile, but it's very light. And that is why it is used for making aeroplanes, spacecrafts, sea ships and also pressure cookers. Another alloy of aluminium is magnesium, previously mentioned. Alloy of aluminium and magnesium. It is very hard and tough and is used for making light instruments and balance beams. Let's see some examples of alloys of lead. Solder, an alloy of lead and tin in equal proportion. It has very low melting point, and that is why it is used for soldering purposes. Another alloy is type metal, which is an alloy of lead, tin along with antimony, and it is used for making printing type. Now there's another term that should be understood when we are talking about alloys. It's very common and important also, that is amalgam. Amalgams are nothing but they are a type of alloys only in which the important and essential constituent is mercury. So they are the homogeneous mixtures of a metal and mercury. So in case homogeneous mixture is of two or more metals in which one of the constituent is mercury, then it is termed, rather than alloys, we call them as amalgams. And again, the preparation of amalgams is done for the same objectives as alloys, like lowering the melting point. Like in case of sodium, it is amalgamed with mercury so that its handling becomes easier, and they are used to decrease the melting points to make the metal more corrosion to resistant. So for all these objectives, amalgamation can be carried out.